if your value and self-worth is tied to your performance and your output, then you have a problem. Often high performance thrives on trauma. Trauma can come through different instances, but one of the most common one that is collectively and structurally inoculated into our lifestyles is that performance leads to safety, belonging, and love. And often we learn this as children through the way that the school system is designed and structured. And in certain cases also through cultures of how to raise children. There can also be certain worldviews and beliefs that are installed to actually further those mindsets and further this, let's call it, source code of trauma. And what does this look like? A child learns from early age that love, belonging, and safety are conditional on success. So the parent or the teacher, the authority figure, would only allow themselves expressions of affection, of love, of belonging, if the child produces a certain outcome, like writes a good exam, a good essay, brings home some success from the sports team, whatever it is, right? A compliment from another parent. So the child learns that as a being, there is no worth. But in the action, in the output, in the performance, there is worth. And without going too deep into it, but if you go back into human psychology and biology also to some extent, as humans, and especially in the child age, we need to belong. It's not like a nice to have, because that ensures our survival biologically, because this is our access to resources, to food, to shelter, and so forth. If we get rejected, and this is why rejection feels emotionally and biologically so painful, if we feel rejected, then that could mean death. A couple of 100,000 years ago, even decades ago, if you're in a conflict zone, being rejected, being taken out of the tribe, being excluded can mean certain death. So your entire psychology is wired to avoid being rejected. And you will orient yourself on your environment, on which behaviors and what do I need to do in order to be accepted, in order to have belonging. And so as children in certain cultures, and that's geographically independent, that's just the nature of how also the economy works and how the schooling system feeds into the economy. We learn, or many children learn, that it is about success and external validation, external evidence in order to get safety, love, and belonging. Now, what does that mean for a person growing up? If they do not develop other sources of self-worth, right, which can come through many other means as well, like family, relationships, in some cases religions, in some cases belonging to certain groups, whatever it is, if they do not develop other strong sources of belongings, then they will, of course, find this level of acceptance and belongings through their school career, their academic career, and then their professional career. And that means that the same behavior that they have learned as a child will now be translated into all these other areas. And typically that doesn't go away. It doesn't disappear. So for the high performer, this becomes now a survival mechanism. And it's very subconscious. There might not even be a real survival scenario in many cases, in some, but not in all. And so it is very psychological. Now what happens is, unfortunately, there's a huge paradox in all of this. You would think that the high performer who now performs, who comes into the company, turns things around, shakes and moves things, right? Is the best performer in the team, in the sales team, ships the fastest in the product team, delivers the number in the marketing team. You would think that this person will be now rewarded with belonging, safety, and love, which obviously is the calculation. But what often happens in reality is the exact opposite. The high performer actually gets rejected, gets excluded, gets ostracized. Definitely admired, but also feared. And many managers in parasitical structures, right? When we talk about parasitical structures, we mean structures that are parasites. They feed off their employees. They extract from the people in the organization without giving much back. There's no reciprocal value exchange. There's just a one-sided taking. At the bare minimum, in return, which is a below market salary and the vague promise of a promotion, maybe not. So the high performer now realizes that the goalposts are always moving, that the formula of achieving success actually, for some strange reason, gets them more rejection and gets them more people talking behind their backs, more people building alliances against them, which is very strange because aren't we here to achieve something together? Can I not be one of the biggest contributors to our success and then in return get the validation, get the belonging, get the love and safety? Well, the problem is that the high performer, through their presence, creates insecurity in everybody else, especially in mediocre managers. And mediocre managers have a very effective tactic to keep the high performer at bay and to make sure that the high performer doesn't pose a threat. Mediocre managers have a sixth sense for the insecurities of high performers. And they will use a method which is called Devalue-to-Control. Also, that's, of course, part of narcissistic abuse psychology. And you will see there are many parallels between workplace politics and workplace dynamics and narcissistic abuse. You'll be surprised and shocked how many there are actually, and how much we have normalized a lot of this narcissistic abuse. But now you see Devalue-to-Control. And it's a very common tactic. I will now, as the mediocre manager, pick one thing about the high performer. Oh, you speak, but you speak too slow in meetings. Last time, when we were sitting with the CEO, you said this one thing, you really embarrassed us. Or you really have a weakness with data entry, despite crushing all sales records. They would just pick one little thing. Oh, I'm not so sure if you are so outcome-oriented and that you actually focused on results because you talk so much about processes and how to get there. And I don't hear you talk too much about outcomes, so I kind of need to see more of this. They will find any small reason to devalue the work. Or I really expected that you would do X, Y, and Z, which was never even communicated, right? And now I'm disappointed. And some mediocre managers do this subconsciously. Some others do it in a very calculated way. But what does the mediocre manager do in this moment? They understand that the high performer has a lot of insecurities, and the high performer tries to gain approval by the group and find their place in the group, in the company, in the team, through basically not having any weaknesses, by being as flawless as possible. Now, if the mediocre manager portrays all these areas of improvement or this is an area you really need to improve, this is something, then what they do is they keep the high performer in a constant state of distraction and doubt. The high performer will now think, well, okay, I have to work on this. Once I have completed this, once I've overcome this weakness, then I will be good. Then I will finally earn the worth, right? And the worth will then mean that I will be accepted and I will have my place here. And I will not constantly have that fear of being expelled. And you'll be surprised. Many people in your organization and company who deliver the most impressive results, often, not always, but often are the same people who daily and constantly fear for their jobs and fear of getting kicked out. And often that is actually their drive to produce those results. Now, if you're a parasitical organization, you will take full-on advantage of that and exploit that, which many companies do, which many organizations do. Same happens in NGOs, probably even sometimes even more systemically. There's a lot of people working in NGOs come with a sense of purpose and from the get-go already undervalue, right? They do not ask for much in return for their participation, working for a worthy cause. So the high performer is now in that state of disorientation, of confusion. Like, okay, whatever I'm doing, there always seems to be, the goalposts are being moved. Why does the mediocre manager do that? Imagine a scenario in which the supervisor of the mediocre manager looks at the team's dynamics and says, hey, I see you have this really talented person in your team, Lena. And honestly, right in the past couple of meetings, I haven't really seen much inputs from you, but every time I talk with her, with Lena, with your employee, she always has these really great ideas and really fascinating insights that, make me really think about things. I think I want to promote her. And what do you think the mediocre manager does? Goes into panic mode She's too much focused on the process. She doesn't focus so much on the outcomes and the results. I don't think she's going to be good management material. The mediocre manager, of course, fears for their own position. So they will now downplay all the achievements of the high performer. They will nitpick and point out all of the supposed flaws. And the supervisor, if the person doesn't have judgment, experience, or maturity in any sense, would just say, "Oh, okay, sorry, yeah, I didn't know these things. Oh my God, she's not focused on results. If you say that, then it must be true. Yeah, okay, then we don't even think about promoting her or helping her grow." So the mediocre manager becomes the obstacle, because what would happen if the mediocre manager would actually acknowledge the high performance, which the high performer craves for so much? They would, in the same time, admit that they have been undervaluing them, that they have been underpaying them if they would give them a salary raise. And if they pay them actually more, the high performer probably would understand their own value and their own worth and would say, "Hey, actually, I'm worth more. I can go somewhere else." And if they would promote them, it will, of course, threaten the incompetence of everybody else. Imagine our high performer now being part of the executive meeting and understanding more about the market, understanding more about the customers, the product, understanding more about the HR dynamics, the company, like what's being talked about in the hallways. Imagine this highly competent, capable person who has been so dedicated and has been taking in everything about this company with a full blast, is now sitting in the executive meetings among with other leaders who spend their days going to nice lunches, talking strategy, talking with consultants, and going to galas, going to dinners, reading a book about motivational philosophy. And now they actually deal with somebody who knows what they're doing. This can be very threatening. And it can really pose questions. Why the heck are you even sitting in this executive meeting? Why the heck are you a VP? Why are you a director if you don't know anything? And so the high performer always threatens and exposes incompetence. And this is why the high performer will always be contained in the company. And honestly, it kind of it eliminates the entire equation, because the system that is designed to crush the self-worth and value of an individual early on in life so that they produce amazing and extraordinary results later on is now constraining and containing that same performance that it could get from all of that pain, and actually is not allowing it to fully flourish and to fully expand. So it kind of poses the question, what's the point of it? What's the point of it? And the point of it is, okay, you have a few breakthrough candidates who then kind of go on and do great things on their own, but they probably would have done that in other ways as well. So it's really important to understand, if you are a high performer, it's a game you can never win. The fact that you fuse your identity with your output is the very fact that's being turned against you. And often, not always, but often, it's even worse than that. Your identity is not only fused to your output, which you could be personally proud of, but often it's fused to your input, which means working 16 hours a day, working on weekends, that's just input. It doesn't necessarily lead to output. Sometimes it's actually less hours and more strategically leveraged action that creates great outputs, leveraged outputs. It's not working 16 hours a day. And so as long as your self-worth is fused to your performance and to the need for external validation, so that you can allow yourself, you get a permission slip in order to allow yourself to feel worthy, as long as that is happening, any organization will prey on you and will parasitically extract from you and will make sure that you stay contained and in your place. There's certainly exceptions where you find great leaders who do not feel threatened by high performers, who actually want to elevate a high performer, to give the high performers a role in the company where they can thrive. There's certainly exceptions, but it is a minimal percentage. It's not the reality for most employees, and especially not for most high performers. And you might inevitably come to a point where you just realize this game is not working. You see people who are way less talented getting promoted. You see people being hired externally who have no skills and basically get double the salary, while your salary discussions are constantly being blocked, postponed, and rescheduled. So what can the high performer ultimately do? As long as the operating system is tied to self-worth equals performance or performance equals self-worth, as long as it's happening, you will always face the same situation again, regardless of where you go. Regardless, even if you said, I just want to go into a creative career without any pressure, you will re-pattern, you will redo the same moves because it's in you. It's not outside there. It's not your boss that's the problem. It is that software that is running on you that is the problem. And before you can see any changes in the outer world and how you operate, you need to make those changes internally in your operating system first. You literally need to reprogram it. And there are different modalities of doing this, but it all starts with the awareness that this is actually going on. And understanding if your drive for high performance comes from a sense of genuinely wanting excellence, or if it comes and is driven by pain. And it goes into the whole, we even glorify this, right? Like with hustle culture and grinding and so forth and working long hours. But also that can be very satisfying. I myself love the intensity of that, right? Like working on hours, like making the impossible possible, and but nobody believed would be possible to just get it done. That can be very exciting, but that doesn't work year over year over year over year. And if you don't have an alternative to it, this grinding hustle culture, that is a tactic. That is something you want to deploy when you need it, when there's crunch time, when there's urgency, when the company needs it, when the organization needs it. But if that is your default mode for everything, you will eventually burn out. And of course, you can also be very resilient, right? You can burn out multiple times, but just keep going. It's also possible. And it's a personal decision, it's a personal choice. But there will be a point when it will take such a toll on you that you will basically build up depth. You build up emotional depth, you build up depth in your body, which you will have to pay off at some point with a long recovery period. And if you are a high performer, you are most likely underpaid. You're most likely not often in a position where you can actually build up the financial resources to comfortably bridge such a recovery period. So you really have to start rethinking about how you approach your work and also how you approach your worth and how you separate what is going on in the external world with your self-worth. And at the core of all of this is the idea of external validation is giving me permission to validate myself. That is the core source code. That's the core malware, the virus that you need to remove. Your self-worth does not depend on somebody else's opinion, especially not in the age of goldfish attention spans where nobody has even time to think about you or validate you or whatever because they're busy with their Instagram feeds and busy with 10,000 distractions that are going in their mind. They don't even have the time to think about you or to validate you. So it is a hopeless game. It's a losing equation. And if you want to be a high performer, you want to be one on your own terms. If you use pain, that's also fine. Pain can be a great source of performance, of achievement. I think it's inherently wrong to be driven by pain. It can be also a very positive force. It can be a transmutation. It transforms, it transmutes pain into something positive. You know, you have the same in sports and martial arts. But you want to be the driver and not be driven. You want to be in a posture in which you are empowered, in which you are in control while you high perform. Instead of a disempowered posture where you're driven by events, seeking external validation from people who are vested in not giving it to you and in destroying your self-worth further because it serves them so they can extract you. So high performance is a double-edged sword. And it all matters from which posture you do it.